Hey guys, it's Peter Chen making another weekly 500 Zoom video. We're continuing off where we left off last week. On table 1, opening pocket 9s from the cutoff. Opening pocket 8s from the cutoff. Table 2, opening ace 9. So three-way, I'm going to be checking this hand always. And I want to be playing mostly raises in a three-way pot, but I think this hand plays really well as a call. And on table 1, in this three-way pot, also checking from out of position. I think my ace 9 is strong enough to go for a bet. And on table 1, calling against this pretty big bet. I think if I face another bet, I'll be calling again. He shouldn't have very many queens, so the queen didn't change anything for me. My queen X got stronger, but I also don't have that many of them. I would have just folded unless I had draw to go with the queen. Table 1, opening the button with Jack 9. Table 1, opening cutoff with 8-7 suited. Table 1, opening button with King 9 off. So I think with this limp, I'm going to get in the pot with Queen 7. Not the greatest hand, but I think this guy is playing a lot of hands, and I'll also be doing pretty well post flop. On table one, I opened the cutoff, and we have another three-way pot. Going to be checking this flop pretty much always. And folding to these bets. Table two, opening the small blind, and I get 3-bet, so I'll be folding. Table one, opening the button with king six suited. And against this 3-bet, I'll be calling or raising. I'm going to raise this time, or I'm going to call this time. And folding to the flop bet. I think I can defend 5-4 offsuit against a small open. And on the turn, I think I want to be betting hands with a little more equity, but if we make it to the river, then I'll be betting bottom of my range a lot. The jack is a card where I think I'll be betting less on, but still betting a lot. And especially having 5 high. On table one, opening the button, and I'll be betting for a small size with my entire range on this flop. Table two, I open the small blind against big blind. I'm going to be checking this sometimes, betting small sometimes, betting big sometimes. With the 7, calling this raise. And now with the jack 8, I'm going to be mostly betting half pot, sometimes checking. With the 9-7, I think on the flop, I get raised by a lot of just 2 overcard hands, so it's good to put in a bet. Make him fold a lot of hands with equity, and with the jack 8, always calling. So now I river 2 pair. I think if he bets, I'm just going to put all the money in. I'm going to get called by worst 2 pair. Always. On table one, I called big blind versus small blind. Called a small bet on the flop. And now I think I can either check or bet this turn. I think I'm not getting value anymore on the river if I bet. It is tempting to bet with the ace of clubs in my hand, though. On table 2, 3-betting the big blind against cutoff with queen jack. I'll be 3-betting this hand almost all the time. Table 1, opening cutoff with ace king. On table 2, opening the button with ace 8 suited. I get called by the small blind. I think I'm going to be playing pretty polarized, and this hand is just going to always check. And checking again. This board should be really, really good for the small blind that has all the high cards. I'm tempted to bet and make a pair fold, but I think my hand is just a little too strong. And my kicker still plays 2 if he has any lower ace-x. On table 1, I think I'm going to be calling the 3-bet with 3s always. And check raising on this flop. I think my raise size is supposed to be small, so I'm just going to click it back. It's already more than a 27% raise. I don't know exactly how big it was. I'm going to keep betting small on the turn now. This isn't the greatest river for my hand, but I think my strategy is still just going to be betting with most of my strong hands, and then I'm not sure what I want to be check calling. Maybe something like jacks or some of my strong flushes. Or even the lower pairs I have, like 9s through 7s. Table 1, small blind, limps, and I raise the big blind. And facing this pot-sized lead, I think I'm just folding. With this pocket fours on table 1, I can either call or raise. I'm not doing a lot of raising or a lot of calling from the small blind, but there are some hands that do really want to call. On table 2, opening the button with 10-9. So on table 2, early position, min raises. I have another hand that wants to really call the small blind a lot, especially against a min open. I just get to call a lot more. So this flop is very good for me. It goes check check. On this turn, I think I'm going to be betting small at a high frequency. My hand is getting pretty close to a hand that can bet big as well. And now I'm going to go for value again. So on table 1, I open the button. I'm going to be either betting half pot or checking on this flop. My hand prefers to check. And on this turn, I think I'm going to be checking again. My hand is still too strong to turn into a bluff, so checking it down. On table 2, I opened and called a 3-bet. The flop goes check check, and I could consider check raising this hand. So I think I'm going to do that. And once it checks for the third time, I'm going to go for a pretty big bet. You shouldn't have very many fives, and neither should I. So on table 1, I 3-bet big blind versus small blind, and I'm going to be betting this sometimes and checking sometimes. So in the hand where I had 7s, I got called by ace-king. Table 2, opening the button with queen 4. And on table 1, I think this hand is pretty much always a call. I'm pretty sure I'm supposed to call this ace jack. I don't know if the big bet is stronger than it should be though, so maybe I shouldn't be calling. I'm going to check back, and if it checks again, go for value on the river. If he bets, I'm going to call. Meanwhile, while that hand was going on, I played a hand on table 2 where I got an ace high flop after opening the button. Bet small on the flop and then overbet the turn. Pretty much the same spot, or not the same spot I was going to say, same spot as table 1 right now, but the flop is very different. With the 4s, I could be betting again, or I could be checking. On the river, my hand probably never wins at showdown, but I do have a lot of weaker hands that I can bet. I'm not sure about my blockers actually. The 4 is block nothing. Having a middle card blocks some 8x. Having a high card blocks some king x or ace x, so I guess I want to be betting with like a queen jack, queen 10 type of hand. On table 1, I call the 3-bet cutoff versus button. And now I'm going to be folding on this flop. On table 2, I opened the small blind, and I'm going to be betting for a small size with my whole range on this flop. And table 2, opening the cutoff with queen 10. I got called by the button. I'm going to check my range on this flop. And I'm either going to raise or call this hand, and I think I'm raising for a small size. So I turn top pair. I think this is a board that I get to check a lot on. My hand slightly wants to bet. I'll bet this hand some of the time. On table 1, I 3-bet big blind against button and get 4-bet. I'm going to call this 4-bet. So the king high flop is great for the four better. I'm not going to raise at all, I think. I'm just going to call it down. And now I have to bet to get value from queens or jacks. Um, if I raise, I don't think I ever get called by worse. And he can still have aces or maybe a seven. Not very likely, but I think that's more likely than him making that play with queens or jacks and then calling off as well. So table 2, I opened ace queen, get 3 bet by the big blind, and I'm going to be calling. And I think I can fold to a half pot bet on the flop. I might have to call, I'm not really sure. It might be pretty close. On table 2, I'll be opening the cutoff with ace jack off. On table 1, opening the small blind with ace 4. I'm going to be mostly calling this king queen on table 2, raising sometimes. This king 5 is a much weaker hand than I want to open, but I'm going to be opening a little more against a weaker player. On table 2, opening the button with ace-5. And on table 2, opening hijack with ace-queen. This king-6, I could get in the pot sometimes. I think I want to avoid playing a 250 big blind deep pot out of position though. So maybe at 100 bigs, I'll be 3-betting it sometimes. And with the ace-queen, calling this 3-bet could also 4-bet sometimes. So I'll be raising this sometimes and calling sometimes. I think my raise sizing wants to be pretty big. Not raising super often with my range, but just having hands like ace-queen, ace-king, some flush draws, and 8-7. And I just have to stack off here. We have the same hand. I'm going to end the video after this hand. Thanks for watching and see you next week.